I've had all these becauses in my life. Everyone has these moments that move them or push them into a direction to become the person that they are. Why I love art at all, why I love writing, why I love drawing, is not only that you get to show who you are authentically, you get to show something about the core of who you are, it's that you get to discover it. As a kid, you don't know where your creativity is going to land. I started out and I really, really wanted to do comedy, and I wanted to write sketch, and I wanted to be a syndicated cartoonist. What I really wanted to be, though, secretly, was the voice of a generation. And I wanted that generation to be mine. Almost accidentally, I found myself getting hired by a sketch comedy show called Sesame Street. Well, it was sketch comedy like I loved, but it was for kids, which I didn't really know much about. You're sort of stuck with these very basic emotions, these philosophical issues like sadness, happiness, friendship. As the seasons went on, I discovered that I loved writing about these things. After that, I did a little bit more television. But my heart was really in making books. For me, writing a book is asking a question that I don't have the answer to. In books, you can talk about issues that aren't possible in television. In books, you can talk about failure. In books, you can talk about characters not getting what they want. I think failure is wonderful. I think it's something that needs to be understood, and the way to learn is to fail. Everything that I do comes from a place of wanting to do something ridiculous. I have done weird things that have not worked out all the time, and I've sort of stumbled into all these different areas because of them. When I make a book, I want my book not just to be read, I want it to be played. Every time I design a character, I ensure that that character is simply drawn enough that a 5-year-old can recreate that character. When I see a kid who's drawn the pigeon, and then next to the pigeon is drawn their own character, and they're now on a journey of creating their own stories in their own unique way, that's magic, and I'm very lucky to be a part of that. About 10 years ago, I got a call from the Kennedy Center, and they said, "We think the Knuffle Bunny story would make a good musical. Would you like to write it?" And I said, "Oh yes, very much so. I would love to write it." So I got to work with a dramaturg and work with a composer and actors and directors, and I made my very first play called Knuffle Bunny, a cautionary musical. And that began my relationship with the Kennedy Center. And in the last 10 years, I've done all kinds of cool projects with the Kennedy Center, and now I'm the very first Kennedy Center Education Artist in Residence. There's so much stuff that's going on during my residency. I get to play in all kinds of sandboxes. I have an opportunity to work with dance, which I know nothing about. That's incredibly exciting. I'm able to work with jazz musicians, and as a New Orleanian who grew up in jazz clubs, being able to improvise with jazz musicians and draw and cartoon at the same time is incredibly exciting. And one of the projects that I'm doing is a celebration of Beethoven's 250th birth anniversary. And I am making 9 giant abstractions based on the symphonies that Beethoven wrote over a 24-year period, all of which will be performed by the National Symphony Orchestra. There are all these different ways that we get to touch creativity through the characters that I've created, and hopefully what the characters do is they bring a sense of ease, that there's nothing terrifying about them. We already know the pigeon, we already know Elephant and Piggie, we know Knuffle Bunny. So if we get to play with them in a new medium, that can be very exciting. So for myself, I am discovering ways to stretch And I am also trying to discover ways to allow families, kids, and grown-ups to stretch similarly. I think a lot of people think of ideas as things you get. And that's not how ideas come. You grow ideas. You have a tiny seed of an idea and you put it in a garden. And sometimes you have to wait a long time for anything to come up. And sometimes it's a weed. And sometimes you have to put a lot of manure on it to get it going. And sometimes it grows into something that's invasive, that doesn't work. But every now and then, an idea over time grows and it becomes beautiful and it bears an incredibly eccentric fruit. And that is the joy of creation.